if you're here for my last buck meme targe that I posted 2 years ago, 2 months ago, don't unsubscribe yet. I'm going to explain to you what's happened and what will happen to my channel in the next 50-ish seconds right now. So I started a gig on Fiverr called I will provide top of the range Overwatch coaching, as you can see on your screen right now, and it's doing quite well. And I'm basically uploading the coaching sessions onto my YouTube channel in order to keep the channel itself alive. And I am going to make another meme target on R6, and it should be coming out next week before Christmas, hopefully. So stick around for that. I know if you're not interested in Overwatch, don't watch this video. I'm not going to force you to. You can't force yourself. But yeah, this is literally just it. If you're interested about any coaching that's at a decent bloody price and it's bloody good, then please do hit me up on Fiverr. I do accept custom orders. If you want me to like remove stuff and add stuff, then I'm cool with that. This is in itself is a custom order. So yeah, please do hit me up. I need money. I'm desperate. Congrats, you've made it into the first second of this video. So the way this is going to work, I'm going to freeze frame certain parts of the video, and I'm going to speak for however long I need to speak for about your gameplay, or even your team essentially, or rather than me just doing it in one massive go, because if I just do it in one massive go, it's going to be a lot less in depth, and it's going to be a lot more tiring for me to pick up on small little things that could potentially affect your gameplay. I will also speed up parts of the game where it's just back and forth and not the actual team fight itself. So yeah. So directly off the bat, I already like the use of the damage orb. I don't actually use that spot on this map. I just stay near the boss and then I just throw it like a bitch. Because I'm lazy to find spots like that are quite quirky. On this YouTube channel, actually, I do have a video on 16 set Moira orbs for each map, apart from King of the Hill, so that's one for each map. And it got like 90-ish upvotes on r/Moira mains, and I do recommend you go to Reddit and you go on that subreddit I literally just mentioned, and you do go on r/Moira rollouts, as it can show you some little quirky tricks, such as fade jumping and conserving momentum whilst you fades, and then you can like jump up to like high ground and all that cool shit. But yeah, just get into the actual game now. Oh yeah, also when I speed up the clips, the pitch also changes, so the faster the clip, the higher the pitch. Just something to note down with that. I just find it quite funny. I also want to touch on a little bit about what Tesla does, because you have had past experiences with him. The thing I've already, before I made this, I watched Tesla's previous reviews, and the one thing I really noticed was that he never really went into how a team synergizes with each other. He just went in on the Moira gameplay aspects and the Moira mechanics that you need to learn. Not really how a team should play with a Moira, or how your team should play around you. In this case, right now, your McCree is literally behind you. He's AFK. And your Zarya is pushing up to get bubble charge. You don't know they have an honor zen, and unfortunately your Coalescences, and I think you know this as well, haven't been applying enough pressure on the back line, which should thus create space for your Reinhardt to push up against their Reinhardt and thus win the fight. But I'll go in a little bit more on that when we get to that bit of the gameplay, and when you do get your first Coalescence. So right now your Hanzo just died, and they traded. Because their Hanzo has a faster run back time than yours, a lot faster, which means you have about a 15-second period of time where you're going to be in a 5v6 scenario. I'll be calling to my Ryan to go back to Ali and wait for his Hanzo to come back, if need be. Now, because this is Diamond, the enemy team aren't going to necessarily know to push up in this scenario, because that's what you should be doing. Unfortunately, they don't have a Lucio, but because they have so much damage, and so much more damage than you, and your Ryan is going to be undertaking a lot of damage due to that Discord orb, I would be calling for him to pull back in a competitive game. So that decision that you made of doing the damage orb over the healing orb, with your Ryan, I see the thinking. I see the thinking, but in a higher game, in my rank, I would be spraying my Ryan with piss. I would fade, behind his shield, obviously. Um, Pure reason being, if he takes any massive amount of damage, then he's gonna die. Simple as. And you really don't want that when you literally have no point presence because you're already back into alley and you have no Lucio to re-engage, so you need your Ryan to be alive to re-engage. If your Ryan dies right now, you've lost the team. You lost the team fight. And you've already wasted 30 seconds on the clock by trying to re-engage on point without Reinhardt if he did die. That's what would happen, I think, in this rank. But you can get away with it, and really, honestly, nothing major. Up until this point. I like your damage, sentience, ambience so far, and the enemy team really done goofed because they should really be running Lucio and Moira, not Arna Zen. And if you have any friends that play Rhino, you will know how painful it is playing Ryan with Arna Zen. It's so painful. Um, their Ryan had bubble, and your Zarya was just on point by herself. In a high rank, should be flannel snapped because the enemy team just have way more cooldowns. But I guess you got scot-free then, I guess. So I want to take a little bit of a break on your actual playstyle on Moira, because the real fact is, you know how to play her, right? You know the mechanics, you know the cancellations, you know the animations, you've got this from Tesla, you know damage drop into Coalescence, you know damage drop into Fade, you know healing up into Fade, you know the little clicky thing, where you just suck people constantly, and you get more, juice. I hope you know that. Not really useful though. But you know the mechanics, so you know the little things you can do. Those aren't going to help you rank up. Those will not get you from diamond to master or GM or whatever you desire. Because there's such micro things. That's what Tesla does, and that's probably why you're not climbing. But yeah, I'm gonna take a little bit break into this map top down view of first point. So if your team does take damage, which they will, and you do lose a character, due to like a 1v1 duel being lost, and they do have a Lucio, the best thing you can do is tell your Ryan, or hope that he does, back into alley, and thankfully your Ryan does do that in this game. If he doesn't back into alley, then, or he decides to back into hotel, or he decides to go into point instead when you're a man down, then you've basically lost. I've had main tanks do this to me in games, and a Reese's go into fucking a hotel for no reason. And the main reason being you want to go into alley is because you have cover. Um, you're closer to spawn, and those are the two main reasons as well. And they can't exploit you from any high ground or any sight lines. There's only one direct sight line, of which they can exploit you from. And they have to stay on point as well. So just stay on point. Or not, sorry, go back into alley, get resources, wait for your other teammate to come back in, give them 2 ticks, and then re-engage. Hopefully with speed boost if you don't have a Lucio. If you have a Lucio, but depends on your team comp. So right now, it's a little bit difficult to break down what you're doing wrong exactly, because you need to get your ultimate to do that mainly, because that's the main problem that I've seen in your gameplay. But as you can see, your tanks are uncannily coordinated. Like, it's crazy how coordinated they are. And your McCree is just like dunking on their DPS and their supports essentially. Despite how good the positioning of the enemy Zen is, if you look back. But that's why it's a bit difficult. I mean, you literally just saw how the Ryan swang as soon as the bubble came in from his Zarya onto the Ryan on point, whereas their Zarya didn't do that, or didn't do that as well as they actually could have done. The main problem with your team and your worst teammate is probably your Baptiste, and I'll go into why as soon as you get that Coalescence. So yeah, decent amount of chase there. You chase down whoever the survivors were. Got a little bit of extra ult charge from 58 to 72. And now just wait for the next team fight, I guess. I would also like to just add on. I just recognize this as well. of how little value your Baptiste is getting. Like, they have a Doomfist, right? And they're running Honor Zen. So Lucio is literally the perfect pick, just possible, to go against that Doomfist. Maybe a Brig, you could argue, for CC. But in reality, Lucio is amazing against that comp and with your team. The Baptiste, he's weak against dive, you know that. Immortality Field, oh god, I don't want to. Oh Jesus, his fields, his lamps have been terrible, and his Ant Matrix as well has been questionable, I guess you could say. So questionable coalescence here. I see what you're trying to do, but do not be, concerned. The reason why your Ryan died was not mainly your fault. It was like 95% your Reinhardt's and Baptiste's faults. I mean, look where the lamp is. It's literally around. I don't know what he was doing with the lamp. But I hope you saw. I hope you recognized the wasted Zarya bubble from the enemy Zarya, and I hope you realize how discoordinated this rank is. Because I don't know why, as soon as the enemy Zarya bubbled their Reinhardts, your Zarya decided to bubble your Ryan, and then your Ryan decided to pin the enemy Ryan, and then your Baptiste misses Immortality Field. I don't know. I just no. I don't understand how that goes down. I just don't. And then you pop Coalescence. Um, in an attempt to save him, I believe, and not to get any kills. Although you do try to get this kill on the Reinhardt, who's relatively low, but it just doesn't work out because he's naded and the Honor and the Zen are in safe positioning. Because they've actually got a brain. So the number one thing with this Coalescence, even if you didn't save this Reinhardt, it's still a relatively bad-ish Coalescence, and I'll tell you why. It's not from any off angle. And this will happen a lot. I think this happens with like 90% of your Coalescences that I've seen. It's not from any off angle whatsoever. It's always down the main, direction. And the problem with that, especially against Honor Zen, a glass cannon combo, where they're going to be playing quite as far back as they possibly can. The reason why Honor Zen would be playing as far back as they could, especially against that comp, is because they know they can't get dived. They know that they'll be safe away from the fights. And the only time the Zen will ever push up is to your Zarya's grav. Like the value of this Coalescence is next to none. You haven't saved the Reinhardt. You haven't got a pick with it. Just like every Coalescence you should be having should either be killing both the Honor and the Zen in the same go, unless you're unlucky and they peel for each other, or forcing out the enemy trans, because that should be your win condition, right? And the win condition is the idea or the condition essentially for your team to accomplish winning that fight or that team fight specifically. It could go broader in the entire game, so just repeating the same combo all over and all over and all over again. That's also a win condition for your entire game, but it's a lot more generalized. If you're gonna do it against the entire game, and their win condition, the enemy team's win condition, is to save transfer for your grav and to land a grab onto you because you have no defensive ults. Essentially, that's their win condition. You do win this game. Your win condition is to force out trans as quickly as you can before your Zarya pops grav, and you need to be in charge of tracking that because you've got a piercing beam. If you weren't playing Reinhardt with this, I would be saying to my Reinhardt, could you go Arisa and could we do a pull Coalescence? And especially against Honor Zen, that's really, really powerful because there's no AoE healing to withdraw all of that damage. And that's what, 120 DPS Pierce. That's crazy high, especially in consideration with other abilities such as Ryan Firestrike, and especially in this new meta with where Ryan Arisa is going to be quite powerful because of the shielding and how the CCK is just going to be too high for lower ranked players in comparison to higher ranked ones. But in reality, if you were to do this Coalescence, do it when you pressure the squishies. not where, you know, you pressure the front line, but I see what you're trying to do. Maybe next time, at least you didn't hesitate, which is a good thing. I see too many Moiras hesitate when they coalescence. Like, should I save this guy? Should I not? You just went for it immediately. And I like that decisiveness from your playstyle. And I like the aggression as well. That's coming off quite nicely. But just be aware, is my team drastically fucking up, and is a coalescence going to change that? And I'm going to pause it a little bit to explain what coalescence is supposed to be used for. But yeah, overall so far, you're doing pretty well. Don't be ashamed of that, you know, bad coalescence of your Rhine dying, because essentially, that your Rhine not dying is not your fault. That is the Baptiste's and your Zarya's and your Reinhardt's fault, essentially. So the main two reasons why you actually won that fight is because, A, implicitly, they don't have a Lucio, so they can't take point control, they can't hunt down your Zarya, they can't hunt down your Baptiste, who literally just wasted our Matrix, and they can't hunt down you, or at least pressure you and Zarya to go into alley, via a Lucio amp speed boost. And B, the second main reason why, is because your McCree goes to high ground like a genius, and, well, not a genius, but, you know, sarcastically me saying that, and plays an off angle, because a high ground is a type of off angle typically, especially against Ryan comps, and just gets 2 picks, and that's really basic Overwatch. Just take high ground and shoot the enemy, lol, which the McCree did, and the third reason, kind of, is because the enemy Zarya had wasted her bubble on the Reinhardt earlier in the fight. I think you can rewind that, and you'll see the enemy Zarya bubble the Rein at choke for no reason. Again, I just don't understand. But again, you got away with that, luckily, just because of how much better your comp is, even though it's not perfect. How much better your comp is compared to theirs. Right, I just want to take a little moment, and I just recognize this, on how open and exploitable your positioning is. Look how open you are, look how many angles. So you've got the angle from point, you've got the angle from hotel, you've got 2 angles from the top right door, and you've got the angle, actually another angle behind the Reinhardt, behind the, not traffic, what am I saying? The telephone box, and you've got an angle on top of that as well. You're exploitable from 5 to 6 angles, because there's technically 2 more in a hotel, and that was extremely open. And what you would ideally be doing is going into alley and healing your Zarya. God knows what could happen, if a Rhino landed a fire strike and a Zarya hunted you down, and they had a Lucio. Keep that in mind when you're playing Moira, and there is a death in this VOD review, I believe, of you dying because you peeked your head out around a corner to a Hanzo, which is also very dangerous, because of pick potential and Hanzo being a one-shot kill, as well as Zen. So keep that in mind. It's not a major thing, but just something to bear hold of with in the future games, because you're extremely open sometimes, and that's not too big a deal in run comps, but you might notice this later on. So I'm actually recording this the next day, and this next team fight, where you pop Grav and then you pop Dragon Strike and you pop High Noon, you don't really need to pop it because your team's already at choke, and you don't need to pop High Noon, but I do see the thinking, they have no Zen, you might as well win the team fight now, but I haven't even gone through choke yet, so maybe a little bit of a call that you can make, between your Zarya and your McCree and your essentially entire team on what ultimates to use when they just push through choke, or as soon as their Zen comes back from spawn, as you see, they will get grabbed by boss, which is, a bit too far up, but yeah, that's not necessarily your fault. So unfortunately, as you do see in this exact frame right here, their Hanzo does pop Dragon Strike, and before I would like to go into how you could avoid this, and how you could preemptively, make sure that your Baptiste and Hanzo don't die. I do like the use of damage orbs, and I do like you throwing them at the doors. I've obviously split up the clips, so you don't really see that. But obviously good use of the damage orb, and nice use of the resource spray healing thing, where you just tap it and then it does heal over time. I don't really do that in my games. I just hold it down because I want as much ult charge as I can. Um, depends on your playstyle. But to avoid this, you need to be ult tracking because you're not playing. This is what I typically do. I don't. Moira's not a mechanically intensive hero, and your tanks need to be aware of their positioning, and the enemy tanks as well, and your DPS needs to be aware of how to get the next pick in the fights, and how to avoid dying, essentially. So you're left with the job of keeping the entire team alive, and typically it's the off support that does the comming. So if you're running Lucio Moira, the Lucio would be typically doing the comming, as same in the Ghost meta, but obviously anyone can really calm. You shouldn't have to take every single role in comming. I think I linked you the document on Discord about the 7 main simplified roles of comming. You don't obviously need to do every single one of them, but ult tracking is a key part of this. And they have trans because they didn't use it when you used Grav Dragon High Noon on the last fight, and they don't, and they still have Dragon Strike, and they have Grav because they haven't used it yet, and they have their tank ults. So what I would be saying to my Reinhardt is playback, because if their Zen is now free, 100% free to trans aggressively. And for some reason, if they were running a Lucio Zen in a conditional hypothetical world, then your team will get steamrolled. But yeah, they do have trans that they can push your entire team with. You have no defensive ult for that, and immortality field is just it's gonna get steamrolled over. And they do have Shatter and Grav, and that's gonna put your Ryan under a lot of stress. Forget the Dragon Strike, because their win condition right now is Dragon Strike, Grav, but for some reason their hands are just like the Dragon Strike here. But the results do pay off, and so I'll be coming to my Rhino, playback, play by right side of statue, and I'll be coming to my Baptiste, save a Mortality Field for the Dragon Strike, and save it around a corner. Now this is why you're going to be playing around a right corner, because you could easily hide the Immortality Field for the Grav Dragon combo if they do it in, if they actually push through choke. But look at where your Ryan is. He's beyond choke. He's overextending. I don't know why people keep doing this. I think Overwatch Central was talking about this in an earlier video about how people still overextend. Just a little bit of coming, whilst not directly your fault, could solve this entire situation. And I will go on to your next Coalescence. I think you and I both know why it's not an optimal Coalescence here. This will restore. So there are about 1,000 things wrong with this, and I think you know one straight off the bat without even me coaching you, and that's just the fact that it's a 4v6, and a Coalescence isn't going to change that whatsoever. And Coalescence, so I'm not sure whether you know this or not, or whether you've been taught this or you've heard of this, but there's some terms for different ultimates in the game, and one of the terms for one of the ultimates, or not one of the ultimates, but a group of ultimates, is called tempo ultimates. And now what tempo ultimates do, they either speed up the pace of a fight, at which you win it, or they slow down the inevitable, at which you will lose the fights. And so an example of this would be like Valkyrie, for example, or like Brig Rally, or Coalescence. They are tempo ultimates. They speed up or slow down the pace of a fight. They do not, I repeat, they do not change the outcome of the fights, unless, generally speaking, an exception to this rule would be the entire enemy team being 1 HP and you coalescing, then you would get like a 5k or a 6k. That would be a one-off, or even a 3k or 4k. That would make it more even on your side. That's an example of a, situation where Coalescence is more useful, but your Ryan is now on the back foot. Your Ryan is a statue. I know you're trying to heal him, but the inevitable is you're going to, you're going to lose this fight. You're too far away. They can literally just go on point or go around statue, at which you have no Lucio to for the Rhine to kite back to point, or even alleyway, but you know, even at alleyway, they can still push you because again, you have no Lucio, and your Baptiste has been Thanos snapped, so you have a lot less sustain, and quite a bit less damage because of your Zarya. And I said the second thing wrong with this Coalescence is more implicitly that it's again from a main how do I say that? A main perspective or a main viewpoint. There's no off angle. And I've already mentioned this before, but you also do this yet again at second point attack, I believe, which I will get into eventually. You know, when I get through this defense. And the reason why that's so bad not to do it at a main angle, unless it's for whatever defensive reason, is because it is so hard to get at the back line. Because look at where Zen's playing. Zen's playing at cinema hotel kind of thing with the Mega on the right side. So there's Zen's in cover and there's Zen's got a health pack, and he's got trans as well, which you potentially force out. But the point is, you're not the value that you're getting from this Coalescence is little to none. You're barely healing anything. You don't really need to heal the Rhine. His death is inevitable anyway, and you're not gonna kill anyone with this Coalescence. You're just not, because of the positioning of the Zen and where you're at. You're literally in the open, on point, exposed from many different angles, from statue and hotel. So that's why this Coalescence is a little not. I see the thinking in it to save the Reinhardt, but in foresight, or in I forgot what site it is. But overall, I think you know why this Coalescence isn't very optimal. So I realised I kind of phrased it weirdly, and I just listened to myself again. So it's fine to do a Coalescence from a main angle if it's for a defensive purpose, but the Coalescence becomes really, really, bad almost if the defensive purpose has now just been eliminated completely, and you need to try and get a pick with your Coalescence. Again, they're running on a Zen, really, really exploitable glass cannon type of comp, and you really don't want to be shooting at a main angle, because the Zen can see you and he can position himself correctly according to where you are at with your Coalescence.
Surrender to my will.
Well, I'm actually not going to freeze frame it, but the Ryan uses Shatter Papega, which is good for you. So I would tell my Ryan for the next fight to be a little bit more aggressive. And you could have also saved the Coalescence to force trans and allow your Ryan to be a lot more aggressive with how he plays, even though they have grab. So you're probably going to lose the next fight if the Zarya pops grab, by which point you'll probably have already forced out a ton of ultimates at that point.
Restoring you. My will made real.
Now your Baptiste whiffs, just completely whiffs his at Matrix. He's just I don't even know what his problem is. But anyways, now do you see how useful Coalescence can be to allow your Rhine to be a lot more aggressive? Your resource management has been very, 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 very good so far. For me, I'll be at like a third at this point. Like, that's something I need to improve in my own play. But do you see how useful Coalescence could be? You could Coalescence in, healing up Coalescence, or damage up Coalescence, force out trans, force out grav, potentially force out honor nades with just Coalescence. Unfortunately, your Baptiste are just no. But anyways, that's all fine. It's not gonna get any value anyway because you're running Ryan Zarya into it. And I doubt like your Ryan's gonna fire strike and play defensively. But already, I'm currently watching it because I'm extending my freeze frame long enough. But you do eventually force out Grav and Tynoon and Nano at the same time. Oh, and Dragon Strike as well, which is extremely, extremely good for your team. And if you entered in a little bit more, you could have potentially forced trans, because their Zen is quite clever. I'm surprised actually. His positioning has been quite solid. But if you just enter in with the Coalescence, you could clap that Zen and force out trans for your Zarya to be freed up. So a little bit more on your solo player. Nice fade, nice damage drop, and nice utilization of the cover. I hope you do use that, your Hanzo after the bubble has depleted because you've lost this fight essentially.
the dragon consume you!
So interesting choice not to heal the Hanzo and to decide to try and get a little bit more damage off. I know you did spray him, and that's like 16 healing a second before the nerf patch to Moira. But even then, right, if the Zarya just like ult fires or keeps tracking that Hanzo with Discord, or because I believe the Zen is still alive, yeah, he is still alive, then the Hanzo's going to die. And by that, you're going to have a lot less damage, a lot less shield break, and keep in mind, they already have a ton of shield break. And I believe your Hanzo is, again, near death at one point. And I will show you it, like, 5 seconds later, probably.
The power of destruction.
I think here as well, you're just completely in open space. Your Hanzo is critical, and you've got half your resource left. So you've still got quite a bit of resource. I'll be telling my Hanzo to, like, get back. But if you die here, you've thrown second point. You've literally thrown second point completely. Whether it's by a Zen right click, an Arna sleep dart plus nade, a Zarya right click plus Discord, whether it's anything like that, you can't be in the open space like this. And if they have, you'll find a lot more Lucio at the higher ranks. And Lucio is extremely underrated because he's seen as like a really easy character to play, when in actuality he's really not. If they had a Lucio right here, even if they ran Lucio Zen dive, you are dead here. Just from being in open space, they will collapse on you one by one because that's what dive does. And if this was a dive meta, and if this was, if they did run a dive comp, you and the Hanzo will be dead and completely staggered, and your Ryan would not be able to get Shatter off. You will not be able to waste time on this second point like you do eventually. 10 seconds later, you do eventually stall on point for like an extra 20 seconds. And you will have given the enemy team more time to attack. So nothing major. But in a higher rank, you would definitely see the causations of playing so aggressively like this, when you really should be turning around, doing a 180, and heading straight back to your team immediately. Maybe a little bit poke with damage roll, but apart from that, just running back as fast as you can, or dying on cart.
Help me.
Okay, so I've slowed down this clip by a lot, so I want you to look at the Zarya shacking, okay, look at it. She has completely missed her entire beam, as well as the Zenob on that Hanzo, and he's discorded as well. That is, like, in a higher rank, I think you know as well, that your Hanzo will be dead by then. And that's the thing with using damage drop so liberally. You can, unlike the old damage, like, how do you say it, mindset, but against that, you just simply can't do that. A Hanzo in the open, discorded, and getting beamed by a Zarya in a higher rank, you can't use damage orb in that situation. And I think that's a little bit of a gap of game sense that you may not have noticed at that exact point, but luckily I did, because, I don't know how I noticed it, but I just saw a Zarya beam just miss the entire Hanzo. Something to take note of that in the future as well. You may want to use your healing orb a little bit more to save out position targets the higher you climb, especially with this new Moira change of our healing amount being decreased.
See,
Not ready.
So you're now out of healing resource, and your Ryan has literally just come back. Cart is turning around the corner, and right now is a pivotal moment to try and win this fight as quickly as you can. And the reason why you want to win it as quickly as you can is because you have less resource. So you want to input as much as you can. Think of it like an energy drink, right? You get an extremely high boost at the start, and then you drop off at the end. I don't know where your Baptiste is. I don't know where he is. And I think he again misses his lamp. Like, Jesus, I don't know. But yeah, hopefully you do try and find a different off angle to get your Coalescence value off of, and hopefully you allow your Rhino to be a lot more aggressive and hopefully get a Shatter off. Which, by the way, he just doesn't. Spoilers. So sorry, I just wanted to make appreciation for this, like, nice 150-degree clockwise flick onto that Hanzo. Something that I can't do because I'm a poor console player. And you do it again! You do it again! Okay, so the first thing wrong with this Coalescence is, again, from a main angle. And you could easily accomplish what you're accomplishing right now with just your heal spray. And again, after this Coalescence, I believe you do fade past the Reinhardt to attempt to kill him, even though he's like half HP, which is completely another discussion, but anyway. And also, there was a Kree to your right, I believe, and you do waste a lot of your Coalescence, by not getting any hit points. It's just there existing, doing nothing. And hopefully you do notice that after you try and track the McCree afterwards. You could go after the McCree. I understand why you didn't, because A, you know your Reinhardt needed heals, and B, the McCree has flashbang. But you could potentially hunt him down with, your hands on the right side. If you had a little bit more communication, but because this is the replay system, I can't really see the communication. Um, but it's not the worst coalescence in the entire world. But you're not applying any offensive pressure. The Reinhardt's barely taking any damage, especially with this new patch. I'm not sure if this is post-patch or pre-patch, but if it's post-patch, then it's doing no damage to the Reinhardt. Plus, your Reinhardt is already getting any heals anyway. Even if you didn't use Coalescence, you could still accomplish the same thing with just your Biotic Grasp. Um, but yeah, that's really it. I will point out more Coalescences later on in the VOD. So do you see after you tracked the McCree how little value you got after your Coalescence? And something that I would do here, or would have changed differently with this Coalescence, is not necessarily the timing. Maybe the timing was a little bit too early, but trying to open the angle across 90 degrees to your right and zoning out the Zen and the Honor from healing the Reinhardt. So you and the Reinhardt and the Zarya, as you see the Zarya's already pushing the Reinhardt, can actually track him down and kill him. This would be a lot easier if you had a Lucio. I'm not sure whether you com that, I'm not sure whether you typed that in chats, I'm not sure whether anyone was in comms, I'm not sure if you were in comms, I'm not sure if that Baptiste was in comms, I'm not sure if their Ryan was in comms, I'm not sure if your Ryan was in comms, I don't know that much. But if in an ideal world, I would be telling my Ryan to go, not Ryan, sorry, my Baptiste to go Lucio, because the value he's getting in this entire game has been little to none. And the speed boost on that Reinhardt when he's completely out of position is needed in conjunction with you zoning out the healers on streets, on main streets, from healing the Reinhardt in the first place. Then their Reinhardt would have died, and your Reinhardt would have had a free shatter on the middle of the streets because there's no shield defending it. So a little bit of extra thinking there, and a little bit of extra planning before you had that Coalescence instead of just panic using it for heals. Zoning out is definitely a good thing, especially against healers who have extremely good positioning, well, not extremely good, but like a half decent positioning near corners and near cover and near near health packs as well. That's what I assume the honors then were. But yeah. Okay, so I don't know why you faded past this Reinhardt into alleyway. I just don't know why. I guess why you faded, but not into alleyway. I would assume, because of the penning sounds and the sound cue, you would have faded immediately after and not actually think about your direction. But if this will happen to me, I'll just damage orb and animation cancel that into fade, and then go back to my Reinhardt, who's already taking a shit ton of damage. Because the McCree's on the right side, your hands have lost the duel, and they've got Honor Zen, and your Baptiste is going to be absolutely useless, let's face it. And I don't know what your Junkrat is, he's clearly getting no ult charge, so he must be coming back from spawn, or he's already died, or he's just getting no value. So your Reinhardt's going to be under a lot of pressure just from seeing the situation that you're in, and feeding into alleyway isn't going to be any use to your team. So as you saw right there, your Reinhardt died. Like, not necessarily your fault, you're probably going to lose the fight anyway, but you could have gotten like an extra 20% ult charge from healing orb plus Biotic Grasp, and then you could have faded backwards as well, and maybe do a little bit of poke damage. So not entirely your fault, but this is what happens when you don't have an inherent plan of what you want to do in the actual game itself, and you just use cooldowns just for the sake of it.
Regenerate cellular structure.
So unfortunately, you can't actually reach your Hanzo because you're playing Moira, and it's really a choice between, do I heal up this guy, or do I hope that my Baptiste heals him? And from how shit the Baptiste has been playing, I would really be telling him and urging him to play Lucio or Mercy, or I could just tell my Hanzo to go on the low ground. Looking at the large picture of when to play Moira, Thankfully you're not a one trick. I hope you're not, because you're wanting to send me Baptiste gameplay, which is good actually. So you know when the situations when you don't want to play Moira, and you know a little bit about the meta right now, which is also good for future higher ranks coming up. But something to consider when you're playing this, like if a map has extremely a lot of high grounds and what comp you're playing, like a double sniper for example, you really don't want to be playing Moira with that. So yeah, it's just a thing to consider in the future. Okay, so in about a second from now, your team is going to get grabbed, and whilst this actually isn't directly your fault, it's just something that as a Moira player, you can't really deal with. Um, and it depends how good the enemy team is, whether you want to actually save Coalescence for that. Because if you didn't use Coalescence on Streets phase, that badly, you could potentially use it as a defensive ultimate. And what I mean by that, is in conjunction with the healing that your Baptiste is doing. So that's 30 healing a second with this, Inspire kind of thing. I forgot what it's called. Don't, be angry at me. And plus his immortality, plus his just AoE healing from his primary fire, plus your Inspire when you just like tap the spray thing, plus your healing orb, plus your coalescence. What I would try to possibly do, especially at this kind of rank where there isn't that much focus fire, you could tap your spray, fade, healing orb animation cancel into coalescence, and that's approximately 230. Hang on, doing the math in my head. 232 healing a second, I think. 231 healing a second. Just by yourself. So with the spray healing orb and then coalescence. Plus your Baptiste, that's 261. Plus his little AoE bomb grenade things. That's 301 healing in a second. And for reference, a Zenyatta Trans is 300 healing a second. And it's important to know these breakpoints, because especially with this new Moira change, you need to be able to know how much damage can my team withdraw. For example, in a Trans, if you're planning to use Trans into a Dragon Strike, grab Dragon Strike combo, is it going to be enough? Because Dragon Strike does about 250-ish to 300 damage a second, depending on where the dragon is physically on your screen. If you didn't know about this, the edge of the dragon does less damage than the center of the dragon. And it just kind of depends on what your plan is. Like, in this scenario, I'll probably use Coalescence as a defensive ult, and it would be exception to the rule of using Coalescence as a defensive ultimate, or a tempo ultimate, sorry. And one last thing before I go on, if you know the Zen doesn't have trans, take the fight early. And what I mean by that is you need to win the fight now. Otherwise, if you lose the fight now, they're going to get a lot of space. You're going to have no cover. They're going to turn the cot around the corner, and Bob's your uncle. The Zen is going to be close to another trans, and you need to grab, like, basically out of the gates when your Zarya's on no charge. So you need to win the fight now, because if you just grab early, then the Zarya might panic grab, and at the very least, you go in for a decent team fight.
This will heal you. Allow me. I need to recharge.
So you could have grabbed strike there, and then you would have won the team fight completely. But unfortunately, your Zarya dies, and you guys play a little bit too aggressively without using ultimates, which is kind of sad to see. And the enemy team is equally as uncoordinated as you guys are, because by the time the Zarya had grab and just used it for no reason, the Hanzo was still like 90 to his Dragon Strike. I like the passiveness here. Your Ryan got out pretty damn lucky. So imagine if he had Coalescence and he went in right now with Shatter, it would be a lot of aggression. So a little thing to keep in mind. So far, not too bad. Mainly mistakes from your team. And if you had a little bit more communication between you and your Baptiste and your Zarya and maybe your tanks, you could coordinate team fight ults extremely easily, and how to counter the enemy team's ultimates by just playing aggressive and focusing a single target essentially, i.e. that target would be Zen, to force out Trans as ASAP, because their Zen is charging Trans extremely quickly. So yeah, something to keep in mind when you're playing maybe an LFG, or you're playing in solo queue and you want to take leader of the comms role, or IGL, that's what it's called, in-game leader. You need to think of a plan every single team fight, whether you have ultimates or you don't. You need to think of a plan when you're in vanilla, and vanilla essentially means both teams have 0 ultimates, so the very first fight, and how you win that. I think Jane said this. Bad teams, they always have a plan for when they have ultimates. The good teams, they always have a plan for the vanilla fights, and amazing teams, they have multiple plans for everything that's going to go around them. So something to consider.
Surrender.
So this coalescence is extremely, how do I say this? Not needed, and I'll tell you why. So from an offensive aspect, right? Look at what you're playing. You're playing extremely passively. You're playing about 20 meters behind your Reinhardts, and you're playing literally at where the point should be captured. You're playing next to your spawn, and yes, even though there's a health pack to your left in case your Ryan gets pushed, that's not the case. And from a defensive aspect, as in, like, to heal people, your Reinhardt doesn't need healing. Look where he's at. Look at the HP he's at. The enemy Reinhardt's not pushing you, and even if the enemy Ryan did push your Ryan, I assume he could counter shatter. And the enemy team don't have a Lucio, so they can't, intin on your Reinhardts, and your Baptiste should do more than enough healing, even though he's quite incompetent. So I don't see the point of this coalescence exactly. And again, for like the 4th time in this entire game, it's from a main angle. There's no off angle that you're playing from your Reinhardt. There's no high ground, but that's because there's literally no high ground to be taken. But you can't play to the right of your Reinhardt. You're playing exactly 180 degrees behind the Reinhardts, and that makes your coalescence extremely predictable, and you're not going to be able to zone out anyone from an offensive perspective from the enemy team. So that's why this coalescence is slightly dodgy. And the coalescence, if you look at this fight afterwards, what value on what impact has the coalescence had to win this next team fight? Was it the Ryan's Earthshatter, which it probably was, by the way, or was it my coalescence that won the fight? Please, for the love of Christ, tell me you avoided this Baptiste after this game. Please tell me you did, because he's so shit. Like, on a real, I'm sorry to say this, but like this Matrix is so bad. He should have gone from high ground behind him, and then Matrix, and then kill people from there on. But honestly, I don't know what the Baptiste is doing. So the enemy Reinhardt is literally about to shatter right now, and your Reinhardt essentially carried this entire team fight. I'm not sure if the shatter would have hit you if the Reinhardt didn't block it. But again, something to consider of where you're playing. I know you're trying to get a little bit of poke damage in there, but if you're going to play like this, make sure you have the reaction speed to avoid that Earth Shatter. If your Reinhardt is incompetent. So nice target priority on the Ana in the next coming seconds where you kill her, even though in a high rank she wouldn't have been shattered because of her positioning, and nice pinning on the jungler who also got shattered. Again, if he played a little bit passively, or a little bit more passive, he wouldn't have been shattered, but again, still, you're maximising the opportunities that the enemy are giving you, essentially.
I will unleash. I'm on fire. You'd be wise to stay out of my sight.
So a little minor thing, I'm pretty sure you know this, but maybe you like accidentally pressed another key on your keyboard, or maybe you couldn't actually reach the key in time, whatever it is. You could jump at the end of your fade to preserve momentum and carry you forward. I assume you already know that, because if you were diamond, how would you not know that? And plus you were AFK for like a second or two, just behind carts, and maybe if you push up a little bit more, you could have focused down on an extra target like a Zen who's still alive. But still, these things aren't going to make you decide whether you're going to win a game or lose a game. So So, nice, this will literally happen in the next 100 milliseconds, but nice, damage drop into phase, animation cancel right there. And I believe this is the penultimate scene fights, and we'll see what goes wrong here. I think you did die to an unlucky Hanzo headshot from just peeking a corner. But we'll see how long you actually peeked that corner for, and whether it was just unlucky, or maybe it was actually your fault, whether you could have done anything about it to prevent that happening.
I will rebuild you.
So, this is kind of an unlucky death. Preventable, yes, but intentional, no. As in, you didn't have to peek around the corner, to throw another damage drop because it was still on cooldown, plus you would have been healing your Reinhardt anyways from just around the corner. And I assume your Reinhardt's shield is low because his shield management is kind of poor. So, it's hard to say whether it's a misplay from your side or the Ryan side. I think it's on both, to be honest. Your Reinhardt shouldn't have wasted his shield as much as he should have. Your Baptiste shouldn't have popped in Mortality Field, and you shouldn't have peeked around the corner when your priority was healing the Reinhardt in the first place.
Your mortality field's down. Watch yourself.
Right, so there's also one thing that I forgot to mention. If you didn't die here, and if you didn't waste your Coalescence last fight, because, you know, it had no actual purpose or value that it achieved, you could have forced trans on that Zen, then your Zarya and Hanzo would have a free Grav Dragon combo, and then you would have probably got the timer down to 30 seconds for a last panic push, where they're not going to get Grav in the last fight or in the last minute, and they're not going to get Shatter, so you're allowed to be a lot more aggressive if you actually stayed alive here and forced out trans with Coalescence, damage up Coalescence, and then your Zarya and Hanzo decide to Grav Drag. Something to just keep note of. It's implicit doing this because, again, it's kind of unlucky you dying here. I doubt that Hanzo was actually aiming for you specifically, but just something to keep in mind, or where, you know, what your plan is, because the Zen now has trans to counter your Grav Drag combo, which is unfortunate. Right, also, I hope you've heard of dying on cards. So, when you're 5 away from your Coalescence, I believe, you just jumped off the map completely. I see what your thinking was, not giving the enemy team any more ult charge, but the fact is, they've steamrolled your entire team, and you dying on card will potentially buy an extra second or two, for your Ryan to switch like Wrecking Ball, or your team to switch to more story-esque characters, than, you know, just jumping off the map. And you could potentially get your Coalescence if you healing orbed, and then go in on cart and then Coalescence. It is possible that you could have survived for a tiny bit longer, despite how unlikely the scenario of that occurring would be. But again, extremely minor, and you do win the game anyway because you did have a much better push than what they did. And I'll go through that as well. So I want to talk a little bit about team synergy, about what comp you're running versus what comp they're running. Alright, so Ryan Zarya double sniper with Baptiste and Moira. So the first thing I notice is the comp wants to do two different things. So your Ryan wants to get in close and get charged with your Zarya, but your Widow wants to keep long lines of sight and stay away from the fight as much as possible, as well as your Hanzo. And second of all, their team's running Mei, which means they should be playing at choke, and unfortunately, you're extremely lucky for this. They're not playing at choke, and the reason why you want to play at choke is because your team has no mobility. They have nothing that can bait out the Mei wall. They have no diva that just walk in and then boost out to, you know, bait the Mei wall. Your team has nothing essentially. If they do play choke, which they should be doing, and, you know, walking past the Mei wall. Now, fortunately, the Mei decides to play on points, as well as the Ryan Zarya, which I just don't understand why. And second of all, the soldier, he should be playing on high ground, but he's playing behind the shield. And with the comp that you're running, they have more shield break, they have more lines of sight, they have more potential bursts of damage, they have more CC, I believe. Yes, they do, in terms of the Mei CC, what they're bringing. But their positioning and their maximization of the comp isn't very, you know, utilized very well. And the comp that you should be running with double sniper is Orisa Diva Mercy Zen, or Baptiste Zen, or Baptiste Mercy. Depends on you know, what character you want to play. The reason why Moira doesn't bode well with Widow Hanzo is because you can't. Well, biggest reason is because you can't heal them. They're too far away, and you're gonna spend too much time wasting your fades trying to get to these characters. If the enemy team ran a single, and I mean a single dive character, whether it be a Doomfist or a Wrecking Ball, you would lose this game. But purely because of the fact that A, you have no CC, B, you have no peeling abilities, and C, your comp is just terrible around dive, just as in general. Your Ryan's going to get booped around, despite the steadfast buff. Therefore, your Zarya's not going to get any charge if they ran Wrecking Ball. Therefore, your Widow's not going to get any kills if they ran Wrecking Ball, because the Wrecking Ball will be diving to great space. And the Baptiste would get literally wrecked. And the Immortality field will not get any value if they ran Wrecking Ball. So if they ran any form of dive comp, your team would literally be smothered to pieces. And second and third of all, I forgot what counting I'm on, to be honest. But if you ran any dive character, or any character that can get out very quickly, like a Doomfist, or potentially a Wrecking Ball, but it depends how good the Mei is, then you could focus that Zen and apply pressure and zone out the Zen and Honor from the actual main tank fight, and that allows your Reinhardt to be a lot more aggressive with how he plays against their Reinhardts. And this is why Coalescence is extremely good against Honor Zen, because it completely zones out the healers. It depends on where they're playing, and it allows your Ryan to be 1,000% more aggressive, not depending on what comp they ran or they run. Like, regardless of CC, Coalescence is extremely powerful to speed up the tempo of a fight from 100% to like 200%, and it allows their Ryan to be very solid to avoid that happening. But again, this is ranked, to be honest, and you're not gonna really be seeing this sort of stuff when you go beyond the threshold of about 3,500 or above. Or even 3750 or above, you're going to see a lot more meta, you're going to see a lot more before the patch, pre-patch, Orisa Sigma, and a lot less Widow, especially against double shield. I mean, if they ran, a Sigma ball, then you basically lost, because the Widow would have no value to be gained from our sightlines because of the Sigma shield and the ball applying pressure. If they ran any sort of dive comp, regardless if they're running on a Zen, your Ryan would have a tough time, as well as your double snipers, as well as your Baptiste. So right now, there's what you should be picking. It's like it depends. You're not really going to maximize your value out of Moira because of the comp that you're running. But you could really honestly run Zen against that comp, to balance out the damage. Depending on how you play, or you could be running a Lucia to help your Ryan Zarya push in. But that depends how competent your Baptiste is. So it all depends on how competent your team is, and how competent the enemy team is, and what you can play and what you can get away with, essentially. But we'll see how it goes.
This will improve your condition.
This
This is my will.
So your mechanics on Moira are pretty solid so far, and when I mean mechanics, I do mean your cooldown management and your ability usage. Nice fades, a nice damage orb, and nice grasp on your teammates. Not too much though. And the main reason why your team will lose this fight is mainly down to your Reinhardt and how he plays. So your Ryan decides to rotate around statue, keep in mind, without a Lucio speed boost, and he just stands still, gets his shield demolished, and because you have no speed boost and because your Reinhardt is just standing in the open with no cover, he is going to be absolutely demolished, no matter how much healing you have. And what you should have done is go through Hotel, because he's got way more cover. You don't need a Lucio speed boost for that, and you can rotate and catch the enemy off guard and potentially split out the supports, therefore get the Zen, who may be out of position if you do go through Hotel. But that's just a communication issue that could be fixed in hindsight and in foresight in the future.
This will heal you.
So nice kill on the Zen in the future, and your Ryan, not your fault. Just literally not your fault. It's just him playing badly. Zarya, she wastes bubble on you, and you win this fight because they just peak too much, and the Reinhardt is play split from this entire team and try and get a flank on your team for some reason, and the Widow just gets 2 picks. Nice kill on the Zen, like I said before pre-hand. You didn't right click there for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it was something to do with your mouse. But the intention was there anyway. So again, nothing major. And you should have Coalescences for the next street phase, which should be interesting to see how you use it.
No one can hide from my sight. Escort the payload.
Now in this scenario, your Baptiste would probably want to be on carts, and every single character apart from that Baptiste should be pushing up, and then you should be playing extremely, I cannot stress this enough, as aggressive as you possibly can. And the reason why, if I can see that through that infosight, I believe the Zen is still alive, and the Zen is around the left corner where your Reinhardt is. If you Coalescence, down drop Coalescence that Zen, he will die, as well as the Ana as well. And that means their tanks have no heals, and you get literally a free team fight, but before the car has even turned around the first corner. Also, your Hanzo just needed a little bit of healing on the right side, and I believe he does need to press the voice line to say so. But again, nothing major there. Just a little bit of an awareness issue. But it's a one-off, and it's again not, like I said about 1,000 times, not going to make you rank up by just having a tiny little bit more awareness. Nice flick, by the way. So your Hanzo decides to use Dragon Strike here at the exact moment you decide to use Coalescence. Now, it's a toss-up really between, yes, if you saved Coalescence, you still would have won the team fight anyways, right? But the intention was still there, and if the Hanzo didn't use Dragon Strike and you used your own Coalescence, you probably, again, still would have won the team fight anyways. So a little bit of communication between your Hanzo and you yourself. On Hanzo, save Dragon Strike for second point, where you can do your Grav Drag combo, and Orion can get some ult charge between the Grav, and easy claps, second team fight win, big bam, boom, bosh, whatever. But again, the intention was there, a little bit of communication. I wouldn't say I wasted ultimate, but not needed essentially.
Power of destruction. Toy Molotov. Allow me.
Got you good as.
So right now, your Ryan is playing extremely aggressively, without the aid of your Baptiste. And keep in mind, they've been playing Mei since the start of first point, so she's probably got Blizzard right, just by you knowing that. So the death of your Ryan here is again his fault. He's playing a bit on defense and attack, like a lot better. He didn't kite back correctly, which is his fault. And they do use Nano Blizzard only in this fight, which means next fight you will have Coalescence again. And hopefully I'll see what you will do with that. I can't speak English, man. I've got fucking cold, help me. Oh yeah, by the way, clutch healing orb onto that Ryan. He probably would have died if he didn't throw that healing orb. He dies anyway, because there's a nano Ryan swinging his massive jump and hammer towards him. But yeah, anyway, just a nice thing to know. So right here, your team has lost the fight, and your Baptiste isn't running away. He's not jumping away to high ground. He decides to stay here. So there's two things you could do here, or three things actually. First option: hold down Biotic Grasp onto that Baptiste until he dies, then fade away. Option 2: tap Biotic Grasp onto your Baptiste, then fade away. And option 3 is not do any of those things and just fade away completely. And the problem with option 3 is, again, I know it's a safe option to do, and I know it's kind of risky, but the enemy team are going to be focusing their Baptiste. He's ahead of you, and he's got no escapability. So, just a little thing to keep in mind, maybe if you're preemptive and you want to stay alive, just tap it on him and then leave. You would get a little bit more ult charge, or you have a corner to your right now. You could just stay on that corner and hold Biotic Grasp on him, and then fade away. And then also a little minor thing, you decide to throw a healing orb as soon as you come back after your fade, which is understandable, I know, in case you take a little bit more damage than it is need be. But the problem with that is they're not going to chase you all the way to spawn. The Mei is probably not going to headshot you. The Zen is definitely not going to be playing that aggressively to get a right click on you. So if you just throw a damage orb before you faded, and you would have got a little bit more extra ult charge. Also, I do appreciate the strafing that you do after your healing orb to avoid any incoming damage and potentially any headshots. Like Stylosa says to every single bronze player that he does overanalyze to don't walk in a straight line. But if you just runs out of things to say, he will just say, "Don't walk in a straight line," which is kind of pathetic to be honest. Also, nice damage job as well. Nice rebound. But yeah.
Escorting the payload. I will rebuild you.
So now this piece of gameplay is going to be dissected into more minor bits. So, as in like, you know, the major and the minor bits of your gameplay here. So first thing, you tanked the fire strike from their Ryan, which was completely unnecessary. And you're left on 44 HP. So a single Zen orb that does 48 damage could have killed you there. 8 honor shots, 8 honor nades. And she still has nade, by the way. Could have killed you there. A widow shot if she got high ground and got a good angle on you. Just something to keep in mind as well. Nothing major, but still. Second thing here, you wasted your about a third of your biotic grasp on that Hanzo, and you also wasted, you know, you couldn't really track him that well. Keep in mind, grasp is a projectile. Aim ahead of him. You know this. Again, a minor thing. You didn't really. This is the first time you've ever done this in the entire game. But again, it's not ideal now, is it?
Get in the immortality field. Let them out.
Okay, so third thing here. You decided after you were naded because of your slightly too aggressive positioning, not inherently your fault, but still, you decided to fade away out of immortality field to the mega to your right and take a fucking vacation to that mega. That is about 10 seconds of off time. Not 10, really, that's an exaggeration. About 5 seconds of off time, you are away from the fight, and your tanks get grabbed. Now, if the Zen discorded your Reinhardt, and if the Zarya didn't die to that fire strike, and the honor went to like Moira, hypothetically, your tanks would be in fucking danger here because your immortality is probably off cooldown right now. It's probably evaporated because it was already available 5 seconds ago, and B, it's just. I hope you see, like, you had healing orb on cooldown as well. You had it free. You could have healing orb that you could have kept the flow going. You had coalescence as well. But still, again, it didn't affect this team fight. It could affect another team fight that's similar in the future. So just keep that in mind. And also, being away from the fight this long is essentially being as good as dead. Because when you're dead, you are away from the team fights. Same thing with why Sleep Dart is so powerful. Because it's a 6-second gap where the fight is a 6v5 for your team. Unless you don't wick the target, that is. Because Sleep Dart lost 6 seconds. But that's why Sleep Dart is extremely powerful, because it gives a 6-second gap where the fight is a 6v5, thus giving your team a 25% increased chance of winning the fights. So you doing this is mathematically giving the enemy team an equal chance of winning the fight. I say equal, not 25% extra chance, because the Zarya is dead. But hopefully you get what I mean by saying this.
That's much better.
So there's a lot of things wrong with this Coalescence. Okay, so your tanks are full HP. There's an at matrix just behind your Reinhardt, I believe, when he's stuck in the grav, and your Coalescence is again from a main angle for like the 5th fucking time now. So the reason why this isn't a good Coalescence is because you could achieve the exact same result by just using your Biotic Grasp. Like, maybe if you didn't, maybe you're a bit apprehensive of wasting it. I get that. But if you didn't waste it on the Hanzo, you would have plenty of Biotic Grasp to go around for everyone. And you had Healing Orb, so that's Healing Orb plus Biotic Grasp is, I believe, maths, 155 healing a second pre-patch. Post-patch, it's now 140 healing a second. So that's still decent, right? You don't need 250 healing a second on your tanks. They're full HP. You've got Baptiste. You've got at Matrix that could double the healing of your healing orb as well. So that's not necessary. Okay, second thing is that you don't need to use this Coalescence defensively, like I said. So what I would have done personally in this scenario, I would have used my Biotic Grasp. I would have done a healing orb, 150 plus healing a second, plus Baptiste, and after that Zen Trance has finished, I would have faded past the carts all the way into that train station right there, and I would have damage orbed the Coalescence. I would have done the damage orb if I could, if it was on cooldown. Obviously, if it's not available, I wouldn't have used it. But I would have damage orb downward drop Coalescence, ideally, onto that Zen, and the reason being is because that Zen is now in fucking terrible positioning after that trans, because he's stuck in the graph, right? He's stuck in the graph, he can't move, and he's literally in the front line. So it would have been an easy kill on the Zen, plus your Ryan would be extremely free to go just hammer in and be as aggressive as he wanted to be, because you are now creating a second angle of danger and offense from doing a Coalescence from the train station. So I'll pause it exactly when I would have where I would have faded to do my Coalescence at. Okay, so right where the Zen is right now, that's where I would have faded to approximately after I've done my Biotic Grasp plus Healing Orb, and I knew my tank was safe, plus after the trans had finished its 6-second usage time. That's where I would have faded to, because you're creating another angle of danger, and that's what you call an off angle, right? If you're taking a Coalescence from main angles too much, taking a Coalescence from behind your Reinhardt too much, don't be afraid to fade in front of your Reinhardt and do a damage up Coalescence if you can. So an example of where I typically do this, or I did this once in a game, in a mid-diamond game, I believe on my alt account. It was Blizzard World. It was attack. We kept first point. I had Coalescence. The enemy team were running on a Zen, Ryan Zarya, Junkratz, and Hanzo. And what I did, I went to high ground on the left side, obviously. You know the stairs to the high ground. I went there, and when the cart was just pushed around the corner, and when I told my Ryan to push up a little bit further, I damage up Coalescence the Honor Zen on low ground. And the reason why I could do that is because it was a completely different off angle. It's more of a flank that situation, but you see what I mean. You're creating another angle of, offense and danger and threats by flanking and doing a damage up Coalescence onto their backline. So you're allowing the Reinhardt to be a lot more aggressive, and you're making the enemy main tanks a lot more frustrated because they're not getting any healing because you're too busy fucking up their backline with your amazing Coalescence from a different angle, getting a major value onto their backline, and you're allowing your Reinhardt to be pushed through. All that space is created with one ultimate, and a similar situation could have been adapted here, where you could have faded to where that Zen is and do a damage up Coalescence. Yes, maybe it wasn't needed, because your Reinhardt did get a fatty chassis, but hypothetically, if your Reinhardt, of their Reinhardt, had blocked it, then that would be a great time to use Coalescence.
I'm restored.
So I want you to look to your left right now. Who do you see? You see a Widowmaker who's also popped Infosight, and you know that because you heard the voice line, right? So you're out in the open trying to heal the Zarya, and a Widow has a complete line of sight on you, and I believe she whiffs her shot on you. If you were in a higher rank, like GM or High Master, that Widow would probably have hit the shot and she would have killed you. Now, I'm not saying that would have impacted the fight at all, because you look at the kill feed, right? You basically won the fights. Their main tank has gone into fucking Narnia, back into spawn, right? And it's going to take them 10 years to get back. So you've basically won this point because they have no point presence. But just as a future thing, don't play Brain Dead because you can. Okay, so you pushed the third point, congrats, you're about to make it. So, you could have used your damage up here about 1,000 times before you actually made it here. You wasted a lot of time. That past 250% speed up was 9.2 seconds. So imagine how many damage drops you could get in at just 100% speed in that 20-second gap period of time. You probably could have got 2 extra damage drops in there, and you probably would be halfway to your Coalescence right now. Instead, you just literally played as passive as you could and waited for your Reinhardt to come back, and now you're only about to use your damage drop right now. It's nothing explicit, but it's just something to keep in mind when you're trying to charge your next Coalescence as fast as you can. So in this instance here, your team really had no backup plan, and your Ryan's playing too aggressively, and you're not with your Ryan whatsoever. So the mate is just literally free to Blizzard, but in between your Reinhardt and your backline. That's how much space there is between your Baptiste and you and your Reinhardt. So it's either you played passively, and you played on carts, and you played, so you would save escaped cooldowns for the May Blizzard. You played extremely aggressively, and you tried to force out as many ultimates as you could for that next
Bearing the
push.
damage. This will restore you. Surrender to my will.
So this Coalescence right here, is probably your best Coalescence in this entire game so far. Though improvements could be made. So it's again from a main angle. I keep stressing this, but you really need to find opportunities and slight, surgical, almost pathways where you could focus the backline. But however, the good things with this Coalescence is that it gives your Ryan full confidence to push in, right? So he can shield hop and go to the corner without a Reinhardt to worry about, and you know, Coalescence as well, 140 hitting the seconds. Nice healing up on the Ryan as well when he counterpins. But if you really had the balls on you, right? If you really wanted to play as aggressively as you could, and you wanted to play like fucking Tesla in Platinum, you could go in. You could go right side. Where you know Roadhogs would typically play through that right corridor. Flank around and downward of Coalescence, their backline, and boom, Bob's your uncle. There you go. You've created an entire new sightline. You've got 2 Coalescence kills on their backline. Your Ryan is now pushed up the corner, and you are pushing payload like it's no tomorrow. And the enemy team are staggered because by the time you kill the Ana Zen, the Reinhardt is already back. But like the problem with this is that in a higher rank or in a competitive 6v6 scenario, there will be a little bit of scouting going on. But in this scenario, it'll be completely fine to do that. Only thing, if you were to do that, just communicate that with your Reinhardt. Just say, Reinhardt, push up. Your Baptiste is going to help you. Use payload as a form of cover. I'm gonna go right side, and I'm gonna down drop Coalescence their backline and see what happens. Because 9 times out of 10, the Ana Zen will die from that. So yeah. Although this is a decent Coalescence, you are giving a signal to your Reinhardt to play aggressively here, which is nice, and therefore you win the team fight because of, you know, the aggressiveness of your Reinhardt in conjunction with the Coalescence. So nice target swap onto the Zen here. I don't know why he's playing here, despite his great positioning throughout the entire game. I'm playing really far back in cover next to half packs, next to Ozana. He just fucked up here, I guess, and you capitalized on it, which is nice to see.
The power of destruction, restoring you.
And right now, it's just really clean up, to be honest, onto the enemy team. Nothing really I could input about this. Your Widow's just popping off, your Baptiste popped and Matrix far behind, he's in the same cover. You've done the grab Dragon Strike combo. I guess one thing you could say is say to your Zarya to play a little bit more passively so she doesn't get picked off. But your your Widow's popping off, so yeah. So thankfully you do get a lot more value out of this damage orb than you did last round. Also a reminder to check out my YouTube video. It'll be somewhere on my YouTube channel, the recent videos, you know, past all the shitty ones I made when I was like 10 years old. But it's a good video for just learning a set damage orb per map, whilst maximizing your safety. Although you could keep using this, this is completely fine. You're completely safe. Widow's not going to headshot you because you fade immediately after it. But yeah, just a reminder if you want to check that out.
2, 1.
I cast this
Attackers
forth.
incoming. Defend objective A.
I'm restoring you.
So right about 3, 2, 1 now, you need to be a lot more careful about where you play. Their Widow has a complete line of sight on that angle. Their Reinhardt just tossed a 5-strike past you. The McCree is watching that angle as well, and you're already on 139 HP. 1 more headshot, or just I say more, but 2 more body shots or 1 headshot from a McCree will kill you. On a sleep dart, a Zen right click, a hog hook because they now have a hog right now. Will kill you. So you do get pretty low here, I think. I believe you get like 44 HP if I'm watching correctly, but you do get below 50. And a higher rank, you would probably die in this scenario. For some reason your Reinhardt is playing left side of statue, and I get it because I believe their Reinhardt is pushing around statue, but you really don't want to be playing that position if you play tank. If you ever play Reinhardt, do not play like this. He's in complete open space. His team's not with him, and he's got a complete he's split off essentially because there's another open angle to your right. So yeah, just communicate that with your Ryan to shield hop back to the points, and then you should be completely fine. But yeah.
I need healing.
Right now I could easily freeze frame this and just extend the time so I get it to 90 minutes. But your Widow got a nice pick on the Ana, therefore your Ryan had the game sense to actually push their Reinhardt because he had no healing, and thus kill him. So right now you don't actually need to be playing this passive. You could literally play right side of the corner and you'd be fine, and you wouldn't be in danger of the hog CC, or any CC at all really. And I believe your Hanzo died to the Roadhog hook, which is his fault because he's playing beyond the Reinhardt shield. But again, you need to adapt to what your team is doing at all costs to save his life. So yeah. So now your Baptiste pops Immortality build for whatever reason, because he thinks that your Reinhardt is going to, for some reason, stay at choke when they've got quicker respawns. But thankfully your Ryan backs off, his shield's almost gone, the Widow's playing main, their Monkey's wasted bubble, and they're overall not applying any valuable pressure, mainly because of their tank comp. But your Widow is finding the picks on main somehow. So this Coalescence is again from a main angle, and you're only beaming down the hog, and there's no real point to using this. I know you already won the game, right? But there's no real point to use this Coalescence, especially when their Zen has been headshot by the Widowmaker. The Monkey hasn't got any bubble, and it's just a hog on point, and you're gonna kill him anyway with Grasp. If they do somehow cap this point, then this is a 100% wasted Coalescence that you could have used, or you could use next fight potentially. If they did capture this point. If you didn't want to play more aggressive, you could just forget the hog and zone out the Ana playing main, so you didn't get any heals, and you could potentially get a pick on the Ana, which makes their comp even more staggered. But again, that's not going to make a huge, impact on the outcome of this game. So it's become pretty clear to me that the enemy team is throwing because their Ana literally just popped Nano Boost on their McCree. Kind of sad. Don't do this. Don't succumb to the toxicity of your team in future games. Mentality is a very important thing when you're climbing. Just don't ever do this. If you're in a scenario like this and you've got just an overall worse team, just practice a character that you're not that good at and use the game as practice, because that's literally going to be the best form of practice that you can get against enemies that are better than you at the game, essentially, or destroying your team in competitive. That's that's the best thing you can do. It's called PMA. I mentioned it in the document that I sent you on Discord, actually, in the mentality section. Quite important when you're playing the game. Lucky kill coming up in 3, 2, 1. There you go. Now, since the enemy team is dying, I'm just going to mention a few small things. So, nice checking on the Doofus right there against the Monkey. He possibly could have died there, but it's going to be unlikely, to be honest. So that's the game, really. I'm just gonna lower the game volume a little bit and speak over whilst I finish this. So the two main things are your communication between you and your tanks, and the synergy of you playing Moira in conjunction with your comp and how it's gonna work, and your coalescence usage, specifically where you're coalescing, and the intention of the coalescence. So what I mean where, I mean the main angle thing, and your intention. Is it defensive or is it offensive? If it's defensive, then it doesn't really matter where you play as long as it's not in a feeding manner. And if it's offensive, well then it does matter a bit more about where you play and how you utilize cover and different angles in your gameplay to try and get the picks that you need to get. Specifically on that push on streets phase, second point attack for you, when I broke it down a little bit more. Because that was like the pivotal moment where you could have easily lost a team fight there. But yeah, unfortunately I didn't get it to 90 minutes, but I think I've covered the essentials basically. Your mechanics also seem pretty competent. I expect that at this level. I expect that from people like Tesla teaching you how to play the game properly. He doesn't really go over the synergization and the how to get out of X rank kind of thing. He just speaks about the specific Moira gameplay, and from there on, you can't really climb by just talking about her mechanics. You need to talk about how, or your game plan. You 100% need to talk about how you're going to win the team fights, especially when you're playing a character that's not that intensive in comparison to the other characters in her category. But yeah, apart from that, I'm looking forward to doing the second Volod review, and I'm going to submit this into Fiverr right now, so I can, not have it late or considered to be late. But yeah, that's really it. Also, watch the Moira Orb video.